That's the key thing, right? So we're looking at high point, low point really right now. So on this next one, this is drawing number 13. Oops, gotta put my paper upside down. You'll notice every so often I flip my paper upside down, or the reverse way, and that's because the guideline that's on the punch is not dead center. It's slightly off center. So if I take my paper like this and flip it over, these were all punched and they all line up, but you can see how my paper doesn't quite line up on the one side there. So make sure that your paper is consistently lining up. Otherwise it's going to jiggle back and forth like this. Right? And we don't want that. I mean, once you put it on the pegs, it'll work. But when you're flipping it in your hand, it won't necessarily work. All right, so I'm going to find my high point here, which is right here. And I'm going to go with the bottom of the ball. So I'm just going to use my coin here to just lightly trace off this. So that I've got my template there. And then I'm just going to go in and rough it. Okay, and pretend I'm drawing a circle. Okay, and it just gives it a little bit of fuzz and weight to it. And I can just go back over and just tighten up the line a little bit. So this is drawing number 13. And now we go to our next low point, which is drawing number 19. So once again, my surface point is right there, just right there. And again, I'll take my coin, line it up, trace it off just so I've got the general volume. Whoops, slipped there. So I'm just getting the general volume. And I don't want to squish as much as I did on my number 7. My number 7 had a lot of squish in it. I don't want it to squish quite that much, so I'm just going to lessen it up a little bit. So there's my second squish position down there. And I find my next high point, which is 23. My high point's right there. And once again, using that as my bottom of my coin. Lightly trace it in and rough it up a bit. Now, one of the other things that will add to the overall flavor of it, and again it's called line quality essentially, is that in that these drawings here we just sort of scribbled them in very loose and fuzzy. What I can do is I can add weight to the ball by making the bottom line slightly thicker. It's not an issue of light and dark, it's a matter of thick and thin. If I just darken this line and thicken it up a little bit more in the bottom here, it adds more weight to it. It has a sense of pull to it. And that'll just add to the sensation that this thing has actually got some form and the gravity is affecting it, and when it touches the ground, it's actually impacting and you feel the weight of it a little bit more. So it's a little visual trick that we'll get into more and more as we work on our characters. You'll probably be learning this in your character design class as well. That if you put a thicker line around the bottom of the character's body shape, that it adds more weight to it. And the character seems to sit on the surface a little bit more. So you put it on the bottom of their feet, or in some instances, you know, if you've got an arm of a character, let's say this is your character's body here, and their legs are like this. Just something really simple. And we got a foot here, and the other foot's over here. Okay, so we just got a character standing like this. If I add more weight to the lines around the butt here, and get the line to taper up there, around the front part of the stomach here, and then get the line to taper up in here. Around the crotch area, make that thicker. And then for the legs, keep them thin at the top here, and then taper them, or sorry, get them to come thicker down at the bottom there. Thinner at the top and thicker down at the bottom. Okay. It adds weight to the character. The same thing with this bottom line here underneath the foot. Make this thicker, make this line thicker, and then keep these lines thin. See how it just pulls the character down a little bit? Okay. So it's the same idea with our balls. If we just add a little bit of thickness to the bottom of them, it'll make it hold a little bit better onto the surface. It'll feel heavier. So now our next key position is our down point. Next key position is number 27. We'll find that low point down here. And on this one here, I think I'm going to take pretty much all the squish out of it and just make it a circle.
So there's no squish at all for that one?
No squish at all on this one. But again, I'll leave this option up to you. It just depends on what your ball is made out of. So if you want your ball to be more springy and boingy, then yeah, add some more squish to this one too. But each one has to be successively less than the previous one. Right? So it has to lose its energy, descend in the amount that it squishes. So by doing this, I'm simply saying that this is a firmer ball than something that's made out of Jello, let's say. Now my next high point will be number 30. And these are the simple ones because they're basically all just circles from here on in. The other ones, as we'll discuss later, in just a few minutes once we've finished up our keys, we do have to go in and modify them because we're doing the stretching and squishing on them. So from this point on, the ball is not going to deform at all. It'll just stay as a circle. Next key position is number 33. Remember to circle all your keys so it's clear that it's a key. My low point is down here. Next one, just a little tiny bounce here for 35. And then my final down position, number 37. into my final little roll, which I didn't actually number them out, but if I take my timing that I have here, this would be 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43. This is my final key. Once again, just be careful you don't roll it too far. So those are all my primary keys. Just take it off the pegs here and we'll flip it. Here we got a nice little stack. So remember the flipping procedure, you hold it in your hands like this, bend the paper so that it fans out, grab it, flip it the opposite way so it fans out even more, and then release it. You can see how it fans out nicely there. And hold it in your hands and then just let the drawings drop. Very staccato because it's just high and low points. So we can see where it's going from and to now. Alright, so now what we want to do is we want to drop in our major breakdowns. So we'll just go through that process and then I'll let you finish up all the final in-betweens on the whole thing. Before we do that, actually, let's drop in our timing charts for the whole thing. So our timing charts are just going to basically follow what we've got here. So we're going from number 1 down to number 7. So a timing chart on this side here will go from here, stretch it out, to number 7. And we just follow the exact same spacing that we had on our overall path of action. 5 is halfway. Then we got 4 goes in here, 3, 2, and we got 6 is our favor up here at the top. 2, 3, 4, 5 is our halfway breakdown, and 6 is our favor. Next with number 7. From 7 up to 13. Again, just draw your timing chart on here. It's going to be 13 up here. Our halfway position is number 9. 8 is halfway between 7 and 9. That's 8, 9. And then we've got our slow in to the high point. 10 is the halfway. Just draw it. Halfway there is 10. Half of that is 11. Half of that is 12. Okay, so 9 is our breakdown. Now sometimes if you get a little bit confused, and you should try and be as accurate with this as possible. I mean, it's the same as drawing an in-between. If you've got a point here and a point here, you find the halfway point and that's where your line goes. Okay, don't be sloppy with your timing charts. I don't want to see timing charts that look like this. We'll say it's the exact same thing. Here's number 7 here, and we've got a timing chart that comes up exact same length to here. I don't want to see a timing chart that looks like this. Okay? This could be a third for all we know. Those could be thirds. Okay? I can't visually tell whether it's a halfway or not. So you've got to be as accurate as you possibly can. Okay, remember this is not kindergarten, these are not crayons, they're pencil crayons, but it's not kindergarten and you do have control over what you're doing with your hand. So make sure you're trying to be as accurate as you possibly can. So into our next key, number 13. Again, all we're doing is just replicating what we've got on our overall spacing chart here. So the next key is number 19, and our halfway position is number 17. We have a favor on 18, and then we've got halfway in between 16, quarter, eighth. So 13, or sorry, going backwards from 17, 16, 15, 14. Okay. to clearly indicate, if you're having a hard time seeing it, you can put a little light loop on here, like this, would indicate that that's the halfway position. This would indicate that that's another halfway there. That would indicate that that's a quarter and a little 16th. So that way it just clarifies for yourself that that's what you're trying to intend to do. Okay, from number 19 to 23. Okay, so here's where we're changing our timing now. We've got 20 as the halfway point, 21 is a quarter, and 22 is an eighth. Quarter, eighth. 20, 21, 22. So your timing charts are simply replicating what's going on in your spacing that you've planned out. And it's a guide for you later on. So let's say you throw this sheet of paper out or you misplace it or something like that. You can go back to your timing charts and it dictates exactly where your in-betweens go. So your timing charts will indicate to you whether you're slowing in of something or slowing into a next key, slowing out of the next key. It's essentially your guide to where your next drawings go. So from this one, 23 up here to 27, we got our halfway position is 26. 25 is halfway between 23 and 26. 24, and that's all we need for that one. And now our next one from 27 to 30 is even smaller. It doesn't have to be smaller in size. Okay, it can be because you've got less space to cover. But your halfway point here is number 28. We're going into 30 up here. And we got 29 right there. So it's a half and a quarter.